So what is Next.js? Next.js is a popular open source React framework that makes it easier to build fast and scalable web applications. It provides a lot of built-in features like SSR, SSG, API routes, and automatic code splitting, all of which helps with performance and SEO. So what was the problems with React.js and why should anyone care about learning Next.js? React is a great library for building a user interfaces, but there are a few things it doesn't handle out of the box. React doesn't come with a built-in routing solution. This means you have to rely on third-party libraries like React Router or Stack Router. It also does not have its own compiler. React needs tools like Babel or Webpack to transform your code before it can run in the browser, adding extra complexity. React now solved this problem in the version 19 and now it has its own compiler, but back then when they were creating a Next.js, there were no concept of React compiler. SEO or search engine optimization can be a challenge too, since React mostly render pages on the client side and search engine might have trouble indexing your content properly. And then there is a SSR or server side rendering. React doesn't handle SSR by default, which means user might experience lower load time since everything needs to be loaded and rendered on the client side. Similarly, React doesn't support the SSG or static site generation. If you want to pre-render your pages at build time, you would need some extra configurations for that. React is manually a front-end library. It doesn't include full-stack capabilities like handling a backend logic or database connection or server-side operations. And React also doesn't impose any folder structure or pattern, which can lead to disorganizations in bigger projects. React also doesn't come with a built-in API integration, so if you need to make an API call, you will have to manually set up everything by yourself by using tools like Axios or Fetch, and they're also like adding some extra step to your projects. Now this is where Next.js comes in. So Next.js is a popular framework built on top of React.js and it solves all of those problems and so much more. First up, hot reloading. Next.js gives you a great development experience with fast automatic update to your app when you make changes. Next.js has its own built-in compiler, so you don't need to worry about setting up Babel or Webpack manually. Next.js also offers built-in SEO optimization with SSR and SSG, and search engine can easily crawl and index your pages. SSR is a game changer for performance and SEO. Next.js lets you render pages on the server side before sending them to the client side. SSG allows you to pre-render your pages at build time or even faster load speed. Next.js is also full stack ready. You can create your API routes, integrate database, and handle backend logic all within your same project. Next.js also comes with a built-in routing, so no need for extra libraries. You can just create your folder inside the app directory and Next.js will take care of the rest. Next.js also prioritizes performance. Features like automatic code splitting, optimized image handling, and static site generation ensures that your app runs super fast. To install Next.js, we have tried npx create next app at latest. It's gonna ask us a series of questions. What will be the name of your project? Basically, you can specify any name that you prefer. And would you like to use TypeScript? Yes. Would you like to use Tailwind CSS? Yes. Would you like to use src directory? Yes. Would you like to use app router? Yes. Would you like to use TurboPack for the mono repos? No. Would you like to customize your import? Yes. So once you successfully install Next.js, it's going to give you a lot of files and folders, and now let me break them down one by one. So the first folder that we have is the .next folder, and this is basically a build folder where Next.js store all of the output files, for example the compiled code or optimized assets. So you don't need to touch this folder, it will be automatically created for you once you run the npm run build command. And the next folder that we have is a node modules folder, and this folder holds all of the npm packages that our project is depends on, and it will be automatically created for us once we run npm install or yarn install. Then we have a public folder, and this folder basically contains all of the static files like images, fonts, iconography, and so on and so forth. Then we have a src folder, and inside this src folder we have our app folder. So this is basically the main source code folder where your application lives. For example, the components, pages, and logic, we usually write them inside this src and app directories. Then we have a .gitignore file, and this file will allow us to ignore a certain files or folder when we are pushing our code to our GitHub repository. Then we have a eslint.config.mjs file, and this is a configuration file for ESLint which help enforce code quality and consistency. Then we have a next-env.d.ts file, and this is a TypeScript declaration file, which helps Next.js understand specific types which is used internally inside the Next.js, like environment variable or file imports and so on and so forth. Then we have a next.config.ts file, and these are the configuration file for Next.js where you tweak various settings like redirects or rewrite and more, which we are going to be learning in this course. Then we have a package-log.json. This logs down the exact version of dependencies to ensure consistency across different environments. And then we have a package.json file, and it holds your project dependencies and metadata like name, version, script, and so on and so forth. Then we have a postcss.config.mjs file, and these are the configuration file for host CSS, which helps you process CSS like Tailwind CSS or auto prefixing. Then we have our tailwind.config.ts file, and these are configuration file for Tailwind CSS, where you can define your custom style, color, and other settings for a Tailwind CSS. And finally, we have our tsconfig.json file, and these are configuration files for TypeScript, defining how TypeScript should behave in your project. There are a few special files in Next.js, for example, page.tsx, layout.tsx, template.tsx, notfound.tsx, loading.tsx, and error.tsx. So now let me just break them down one by one. So let's start from the first one, which is a page.tsx file. So this file represents a regular page in your app, and it contains the UI and logic for what user will see when they visit a specific route in your application. When you visit to the localhost 3000, it will bring you to the home page. But the question is, how and why does that happen? Well, that happens because of the file-based routing in Next.js. So Next.js uses a file-based routing system. This means like if you create any folder inside your app directory, that folder will automatically become a route. However, to display some content inside that route, you will need to create a page.tsx file inside that specific folder. So to show you that in action, so first of all, we have to go into the app directory, and inside there we are going to be creating our page.tsx file. So this app will automatically become our home route, and that content which we are going to be passing inside this page.tsx will show up on the screen. Now if we visit localhost 3000, Next.js will automatically render the content of this page.tsx file, displaying home route on the screen. So far we've set up the home route, but what if you want to add some more pages like about page or contact page? So that's also totally simple and easy. We just have to create a new folder, and inside those folders we have to define our page.tsx file, and it will automatically make it as a route. So inside this page.tsx file, I'm gonna paste this code. Now when you visit to the localhost 3000 about page, Next.js will automatically render the about page content on your screen. Now let's create another route. So once again, we have to go to the app directory, and inside there we have to create our contact folder. Inside that folder, we are going to be providing our page.tsx file, and now inside this file, we are going to be only passing this content. And now if you visit to the localhost 3000 and contact page, it will show us the contact page right here. So this is how routing works in Next.js. So now let's talk about the nested route. So once you visit to the localhost 3000 and then products and then a specific product, which is a MacBook. So now that products is a parent route and that MacBooks is a nested route. Now let me give you one more example. So once you visit to the localhost 3000 and then games and then a specific game like GTA 6 or The Witcher or something like that. So now that games is a parent route and that GTA 6 is a nested route. So how are we going to be creating that? Back to our app directory, we are going to be creating our products folder, and inside there we are going to be defining our MacBook folder. So now inside this MacBook folder, I'm going to define a page.tsx file, and I'm going to just place this code right here. And now if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 and products and then a specific product, which will be a MacBook. So now it's going to give us the output result like product MacBook. So now let's talk about how we are going to be redirecting our users from one page to another by using links. So I already have a login folder, and inside there I have a layout.tsx and also page.tsx. So now inside this login folder, I'm going to define two more folders like login admin and also login user. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to this page.tsx file, and I'll just create a simple component. Next, I'm going to import link from a next link, and now we have to use that inside our div. So I'm going to just use that for the admin page and also for the user page. And when somebody clicks on the admin page, we will redirect them to the login and then login admin. And when somebody clicks on the user page, so we will redirect them to the login and login user. So now let me go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 and login page, and now we will see admin page and also the user page. So when somebody clicks on the admin page, they will be redirected to the admin page, and when somebody clicks on the user page, they will be redirected to the user page. Links are great, but now let me show you one more way which will not only allow you to redirect your users from one page to another, but also will give you more information about your specific route. Like for instance, if you want to go backward or if you want to go forward, you can totally do that by using the use router hook. So now let me show you that in action. So here you can see inside my app directory, I have about, color and login pages, and I also have a layout.tsx file and also page.tsx file. So inside this page.tsx file, I'm going to define my component, and also I'm going to import a link from the next link. And now we are going to be using that for the login page and also for the about page. And now if you want to use our use router, first of all we have to import that from the use router, next navigation, and then we also have to mark our component as a use client. You don't have to worry about the use client because we are going to be discussing that later in this course, but not right now. And now if I log to the console, this router is going to give us information about our specific route. And now if you want to use that, so here you can see I'm going to just define my button, and which will say like go to the colors page, and when somebody clicks on there, we are going to be firing this route. And we have a few methods like backward, we also have a push, and we also have a previous method. Backward allows us to go back, forward will allows us to go forward, and push will also allows us to go to a specific route. So I'm going to just choose this push, and inside there I'm going to specify the /colors, so it's going to brings us to that colors page. So now inside the UI, if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000, you're going to be getting a login page and also the about page, and also go to the colors button. So if I click on the login page, it's going to redirect us to the login page. If I click on the about page, it's going to redirect us to the about page. And now if I click on the go to colors, it's going to bring us to the colors page. So now let's talk about the private pages. So here you can see I have a products folder, and inside there I have a page.tsx file. So which also means like if I go to a localhost 3000 and products, it's going to bring us to the products page. But now let's suppose if I want to make this products page totally private, I only have to write an underscore and it will make it private. So now if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 and products, it will no longer be accessible. So this is how we can make a certain folder totally private. So now let's talk about the route groups. So here you can see I have a auth folder, and inside there I have a login, register and page.tsx. So now if I try to visit localhost 3000 and login page, it will not work. Why? That's because first of all we have to go to the auth and then login, then it will work. But now let's suppose if we wholly ignore the auth folder and we just want to go to either the login page or the register page, how can we go about doing that? Well, we just have to wrap this auth folder inside the parentheses, so it will totally ignore that. And now if I visit to the localhost 3000 and login page, it will totally work. But now if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 and auth and then login page, now it will not work because we already wrap that auth folder inside the parentheses. So now in this case it will not work. So this is what we call the route groups. So now let's talk about the dynamic routes. So I want you to imagine that you are working with some kind of an e-commerce website, and now if you go ahead and go to a localhost 3000 and products page where you can have a lot of products, like for instance you can have MacBooks, chairs, t-shirts, shoes, TV, sofa and so much more. Now I want you to imagine that you're working with some kind of a gaming website, and if you go ahead and go to a localhost 3000 and games, you can have a lot of games, like thousands and thousands of games, like games GTA 6, The Witcher, Bloodline 2, Call of Duty, Wukong, The Watch Dogs and so many other games. So does that mean that we have to create a specific folder for each game and also a page.tsx file for each game? No, of course not, because that will be insane. So what's the solution? The solution is to use a dynamic route. So this is how we are going to be using there. We first of all write our opening bracket and also a closing bracket, and inside there we are going to be providing some kind of name, and then we are going to be using that specific dynamic route inside our page. So now let me just show you that in action. So here you can see back to my app directory. Inside there I'm going to define my games folder, and inside there I'm going to just paste like page.tsx file, and now inside this games folder I'm going to define my dynamic route by using this opening bracket and also closing bracket. And for the ID I'm going to just paste like game ID, and now inside this folder I'm going to paste my page.tsx file, And now I'm gonna just specify this code right here where we are just destructuring params, and now we are showing there. And now if I go ahead and go to a localhost 3000 games and then Mafia 4, so it will show us like game and then Mafia 4. And now if I go ahead and go to localhost 3000 game and also code, and now it's gonna show us game and then code. And now if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 games in GTA, and now it's gonna show us game and then GTA. So this is how we are going to be working with dynamic routes in Next.js. Let's talk about how we can work with a deeply nested route and how we can catch a specific segment from that route. For example, if I go to the localhost 3000, games, series, GTA, GTA 5, reviews, comment 225. So now all of them are super deeply nested. So how can I even create a structure of them in Next.js? The first way to do this is to create a games folder, and inside there we have to create a series folder, then GTA folder, then GTA 5, then reviews, and then comment 225. This is not a better way to do that. So the better way is to use a catch all route segments. So we are going to be first of all creating a games folder, and inside there we are going to be creating our dynamic route, but in this case we are going to be using a 3 dots. And once we use that, then you can give it any name that you prefer and just create your page.tsx file, so it will allow you to catch all of the route segments. So now let me show you that in action. So here you can see back to my app directory, I'm going to define my games folder, and inside there I'm going to just use my dynamic route, but in this case I'm going to specify 3 dots, and I'm going to give it the name of slug, but you are more than welcome to give it any name that you prefer. And inside there I'm going to define my page.tsx file. So inside this page.tsx file I'm going to place this code. So basically we're just creating a component, and now we are destructuring a params prop from there, and now from those params we are now destructuring the slug. Then we are iterating over through all of the entire slug because it's going to give us an array, and then we are showing there or rendering there to the UI. And now if I go ahead and visit to the localhost 3000 games, series, GTA, GTA 5, reviews, and comment 225, so now it's going to render all of them to the UI. In some situations you would want to reuse your UI again and again. Here you can see I have this navigation bar. If I go to the admin page, it's going to show us this navigation. If I go to the users page, there will be this navigation bar. If I go to the products page, there will be also this navigation bar. So how can I even achieve this reusability? To achieve that, for that we are going to be using our layout.tsx file, and this is also a special file in Next.js. So this file acts as a wrapper that surrounds your page content. So any layout related things like header, footer, navigation bar are all included here. So now let me show you that in action. So here you can see I have my login page, and inside there I have a login admin and also login user. Then I have my layout.tsx file and also my page.tsx file. So inside my layout.tsx file, first of all I'm going to define my component which will destructure our children, and now I'm going to use these children right here inside this div. So basically it's going to take the entire content of this page.tsx and it's going to inject that inside this children. Next, I'm going to also import my navigation bar, and I'm going to use that right here. So that navigation bar will be now reusable throughout this entire login page. So if I go to just login, I would be able to see this navigation bar. If I go to the login admin, or if I go to the login user, I would be still able to see this nav bar. Now let me give you one more example. So I'm going to define my games right here, and inside there I'm going to define my genre and also reviews. Then I have my layout.tsx file and also page.tsx file. So inside this layout.tsx file, first of all I'm going to define my component, and I'm going to destructure the children's, and I'm going to use them inside the div. Now I'm going to change the background color of them. So now if I go to like either games, so the background color will be totally red, or if I go to the games genre, the background color will be totally red. That's because of the layout.tsx file. Now let's talk about another special file in Next.js which is called the template.tsx. So templates are like layout because they are used in multiple pages in your app, and when a user moves between pages that uses the same template, it resets everything and starts fresh. So now let me show you that in action. So back to my app directory, I have a games directory, and now inside there I have a revenue page and also a stat page. I also have a layout.tsx file. So now inside this layout.tsx file, I'm going to define my component with the name of layout, and I'm going to also mark that as a client component. I'll also import the link and also the use state so that we can have some sort of a state inside our client component. I'll define my name, and I'm going to bind there with my input field. So like basically anything the user type, we would be able to get there. I'm going to also provide my links, which will brings us to the revenue and also the stat page. So now if I visit to the localhost 3000 and games, it's going to give us this input field and also the revenue and stat page. So if I type like hello, and now if I click on the revenue, there will be still this hello there. If I go to the stat page, still there will be this hello page. But now if I want to get like a fresh data and not this hello again and again, so I'm going to just rename the layout.tsx file to the template.tsx file, and now if I type that same hello inside this input field, and now if I visit to the revenue, so that hello will be gone. If I go to the stats, so that hello will be also gone. Okay, so this is the difference between the layout.tsx file and also the stat.tsx file. Now let's talk about another special file which is called the notfound.tsx file. So this file is used to display a custom 404 page when a user tries to access a route or a page that does not exist. So now let me show you that in action. So back to my games directory, I'm going to define my notfound.tsx file, and inside this file we are going to be defining our component which will just say like game not found. Or basically you can put anything that you prefer, but in my case I'm going to only specify there. Now if I visit to the localhost 3000 and a page which is not available inside our project, for example if I go to the apples, so it's going to show us like game not found, that same error which we already put inside our not found component. So now let's talk about another special file in Next.js which is called the loading.tsx. So this file is shown while your app is waiting for a data or a component to load. For example, like fetching a data or loading a large page. Back to my games directory, I'm going to define my loading.tsx file, and inside this loading.tsx file, I'm going to just define my component which will just say like loading dot dot dot, and you are more than welcome to specify anything that you prefer. Entire UI will be totally up to you. And now if I visit to a localhost 3000, first of all it's going to give us that loading dot 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 for a few seconds, then it's going to give us our UI. Now let's talk about another special file which is called the error.tsx. So this file is used to handle and display errors that happens during the rendering. I'm going to define my error.tsx file right here inside my app directory, and inside this file I'm going to define my error boundary, and you can specify anything as a UI which you prefer, but in my case I'm going to say like whoops, something went wrong. And now if I visit to the HTTP localhost 3000, it's going to give us that same message in my UI if something went wrong. Now let's talk about the parallel routes, but before we do that, I want to show you a problem. I want you to imagine for a second that you are working with some kind of an e-commerce website where you would have different collections, different products and different reviews, and also you would have your layout.tsx file. Now inside your layout.tsx file, we already imported our component and now we are using them inside our layout. So now the problem is if I visit to the localhost 3000 e-commerce page and also the products page, it's gonna brings us to the products page. And now if I visit to a localhost 3000 e-commerce page and reviews, it's gonna brings us to the reviews page. If I visit to a localhost 3000 e-commerce and then the collections page, it's gonna brings us to the collections page, but I don't like that. I only want the e-commerce page to work, not the product, not the collection, and not the reviews. So to solve this problem, first of all, we have to rename our folders by providing an add symbol to the collection, to the products, and also to the reviews. Next up, we don't have to import nothing. We just have to destructure there by using this destructuring pattern, and we have to specify our types today, and now we can totally use that inside our UI and it will totally work. And also if I visit to a localhost 3000 e-commerce and reviews page, it will not work. If I visit to a localhost 3000 and products page, it will not work. If I visit to a localhost 3000 e-commerce and collections page, it will not work. But if I visit to a localhost 3000 in e-commerce page, it will totally work. So this is how we can use a parallel route. First of all, we have to just rename our folders by providing an add symbol, and then we don't have to import nothing, just destructure them and use them inside your UI. So that was about the front end. Now we are going to be shifting our gears toward the back end. So first of all, inside the backend, we have to cover something called the HTTP method. So I want you to imagine for a second that you are working with some kind of a movies website where you need to get a movies, post a new movie, update the movies, and delete the movies. So let's start from the first one, getting the data. So if you want to get the data, over there we have a HTTP method which will allows us to get a data from a specific endpoint. Then we have a post, and as the name suggests that it will allows us to post a new movie. Then we have a page, and page will allows us to update a specific thing from the movie or even update the entire movie. Then we have a delete, and delete will allows us to delete or destroy the movie. So now let me show you there in action. So back to my app directory. Inside there I have a movies folder, and inside the movies folder I don't have any page.tsx file. Instead I have a route.ts file. If you want to use TypeScript, you can totally use route.ts. If you want to use just a JavaScript, you can totally use route.js file. So in my case I'm going to be using TypeScript, so that's why I renamed that to route.ts. So inside this route.ts file I only have a simple JavaScript function I'm exporting there, and which is an asynchronous function, and I want you to focus on the name, which is a HTTP method like either get, post, patch or delete. And now inside there I'm only returning a new response, and I'm saying like hello world. And now if I visit to the localhost 3000 in movies, it's gonna give us that hello world right here. And notice for that we are not using any web browser. Instead we are going to be using tools like Thunder Client in VS Code, or we can use Postman. So now if I click on this arrow, so it's gonna give us that hello world right here. And why? That's because now we are returning this new response of hello world, so that's why we are now seeing there. Now I'm gonna just create a new file with the name of db.ts file, and inside this db.ts file I would have a lot of data. So now inside my route.ts file I'll just import all of that movies, and I'll just provide that as a response.json to my get method. And now if I go ahead and go to the localhost 3000 in movies, and now if I click on there once again, now it's gonna give us all of the entire collection of that movies. It will now import there, and now it will give us as a JSON format inside our Thunder Client or our Postman. So that was it about getting the movie, but now let's talk about posting a new movie. So let's suppose if I want to post a movie with the name of like React Monster class, and rating will be set to 10 and genre will be set to tech. So I'll just go back to my movies folder and then route.ts file, and I will create and export a new function with the name of post, which will take a request as a parameter, and from that request we are going to be getting a JSON response, and we will store that inside the movies variable, and then we are going to be spreading out all of the entire movies data, and we will store that inside the new movie variable, and then we will push that to the movies object, and finally we will just display the new movie by using the new response so that we can see there. Then we will go into the localhost 3000 and movies, and the HTTP method will be set to post, and now if I click on there, so now it's gonna add there or push there or post there to our database. We already covered dynamic routes in the front end part. Now let me also cover that in the back end part. So if you visit to a localhost 3000 movies, so we can have a lot of movies like John Wick, Dark Knight, Godfather, Matrix, and so many movies. So instead of creating a lot of folders and page.tsx files for each of the movie, we can just use the dynamic routes, and this is exactly what we are going to be doing for the backend as well. So now let me show you that in action. So back to the app directory, inside there we have our movies folder, and now inside this movies folder, now we are going to be creating our dynamic routes by using this array syntax. So inside there I'm going to also provide my ID, and now inside this folder we are going to be defining our route.ts file, because now we are going to be providing our backend functionality. So that's why we are now using our route.ts instead of using a page.tsx. So now we are going to be creating and exporting a async function, and we are going to be also passing a request which we are not going to be using, so that's the only reason I provided the underscore. And now we are going to be also providing a context. So from this context we are going to be destructuring the params, and we will annotate that with our props. So now from there we are going to be specifically destructuring the ID, and based on that ID we are going to be finding that specific movie. Okay, so if we found the movie, then we want to show that to the UI, but if we did not found there, so we want to show this message like movie not found, and status will be set to 404 not found. So if I visit to a localhost 3000 and then movies and then a third movie, so like let's suppose if I want to get the third movie, we will just provide like movies and 3, and now if I click on there, here you can see it's going to give us that movie, like the ID will be set to 3, the title will be set to the Dark Knight, and ratings will be set to 3, and genre will be set to action. So this is how we can take care of the dynamic routes in Next.js. So that was it about how we can get and post a new movie, but now let's talk about how we can update the existing movie. If I visit to a localhost 3000 movies and then the third movie, so it's going to give us information about that specific movie. But now let's suppose if I want to update that movie to some other movie, so for that I'm going to go back to my app directory, then movies, then dynamic route ID, and also route.ts file. So inside this route.ts file, I'm going to create and export a function with the name of page, which will allow us to update that specific movie. So we are going to be passing a request, and also we are going to be provide context object, and from that context we are going to be destructuring the params, and also from that params we are going to be destructuring the ID, and based on their specific ID we are going to be searching for the movie. If we did not find the movie, so we are going to be showing like movie not found, and status will be set to 404. If that's not the case, we are going to be getting a JSON response from that movie, and we will store that inside the body. And now let's just search for the movie title. So if the user specify a new title for the movie, then change the existing title to that newly added title. So if that's not the case, we are going to be sticking to that old title. Now let's update the rating. So if the user specify new rating, so we are going to be changing that rating to that newly added rating. But if that's not the case, so just stick to that old rating. And finally, we are going to be showing there as a JSON response. And now if I visit to a localhost 3000 movies and third movie, if I search for that, so here you can see it's going to give us that new information, and that old one will be replaced. So this is how we are going to be using a patch method in the backend. Let's talk about how we can delete a movie. So if I visit to a localhost 3000 movies and then the third movie, so it's going to give us information about that specific movie. And let's suppose if you want to delete that movie, so I'm going to go back to the route.ts file, and we are going to be creating and exporting our delete method, and we are going to be also providing a request which we are not going to be using. I am now providing an underscore right here, and also we are going to be passing our context object, and from that context object we are going to be specifically destructuring the params, and also from that params we are going to be destructuring the ID, and based on that ID we are going to be searching for the movie index, and if the movie index is equal to -1, so we will just throw this error like movie not found, and status will be set to 404. And if that's not the case, we are going to be splicing out that movie index from that movies. And finally we are going to be showing this message to a UI like movie deleted successfully, and the status will be set to 200. And now if I just search for that specific movie like localhost 3000 movies and then the third movie, so it will give us like movie deleted successfully. In some situation we would want to search for a specific movie. So if I visit to a localhost 3000 in movies, now it's going to give us the entire collection of movies, and I am only interested in the John Wick movie, so I'm going to have to specify the question mark query equal to John, and now it's going to give us information about the John Wick movie. If I want to search for the Matrix movie, so I'm going to have to write like localhost 3000 movies, then question mark query will be equal to Matrix, and now it's going to give us information about the Matrix movie. To achieve that in Next.js, so I'm going to go into the route.ts file. Now we are going to be creating and exporting our get method, and it will take a request as a parameter, and now we are going to be also annotating there with the next request. Not just a request, but we are going to be annotating there with the next request, and inside there we are going to be getting our search param. So I'm going to write like request.next URL and then the dot search param, so it's going to give us the search params from the URL. And now we are going to be also getting our query. So we already get the search param. So now we are going to be using the dot get method and pass our query inside there. And now we will be filtering there by using that query. So if we have the query, then we are going to be filtering through there, and we are going to be searching for that query. So if we found that query, so we are going to be storing there inside the filtered movie. And if that's not the case, we are going to be getting the entire collection. And if we found this, so now we are going to be showing there to the users by using response.json and pass our filtered movie. And now if I visit to a localhost 3000 in movies, then question mark query equal to John, and now it's going to give us information about the John Wick movie. If I ask you a question like how the web works, your answer will probably be like the user will send some request to a server, and the server will give us some response back. And what if you want to do something at the middle of sending a request and getting a response back? Like for instance, if the user want to X private route like a dashboard route, and they did not specify their valid credentials, so we want to redirect the user to a register page or a login page first of all. So that process is known as a middleware, and we are going to be using that by using a middleware. So to show you that in action, I'm going to go ahead and go to my app directory once again, and I'm going to define my middleware.ts file, and inside there we are going to be first of all creating our middleware function which will take a request as a parameter, and we will annotate that as a next request. And we are now just redirecting the user to a register page, and now we are using that middleware function in the entire dashboard page. So if I visit to a localhost 3000 and then dashboard, it will redirect us to the register page. We can do a lots of stuff by using a middleware, but that was just a quick example of a middleware.